Brave Explorations. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go over last week. We've been super busy with our interviews, and we went on a field trip, and went on a bike ride, and we've been sleeping in our spare time, or just been extremely busy this whole time. So we're going to have a nice update of our time up to this point from our last update. So the first thing, so we went on our biking trip to Ackle.
Yeah.
So
well,
anybody
from
Ackle.
Yeah.
We went to Ackle and then came back. So anybody want to talk about that one?
I'll just go ahead and say real quick. It wasn't just a bike ride. It was, it was, how many hours were we on our bikes?
It was like 7 hours.
Yeah, so, this isn't anything. It was 42 kilometers.
Which is 26 miles.
And somehow it was uphill both ways. It was a very good workout, we'll say. But it was beautiful scenery, got some good pictures. And I guess it was a pretty fun little trip out of it.
Very memorable.
Yeah, memorable. Yeah. Legs still remember it.
Yeah. All right. We also went on a field trip with the 5th years on our crazy mountain hike. I don't know how to even describe. Use an adjective to describe that.
The Mulree mountain range.
Yes, Mulree. So,
and we were told that we were just going to hike a mountain, but we had to cross a bog. Cross a little lake area. We had to climb a mountain before we could actually climb the Mulree Mountains. So it was 2 mountains and a hike across bog before, we actually could say that we completed the hike.
It also seemed quite dangerous. At times we were holding on to rocks with our hands.
We were scaling a mountain. That should have been more than a hike.
It was a
more
little
of
scary.
Your hands and knees trying to pull yourself up. So.
Yeah, and then
no path.
And I'm not scared of heights or anything, so this didn't bother me too bad. Plus, I was so tired, I didn't really care. But we had about a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet of a pathway. The only pathway that was on the mountain at all. And then there's, it was just sure death on the other side of it. So we had to focus, we're gonna walk straight and not worry about it. And then of course we had Sean went with us, one of the 5th years, and he was terrified of heights. So that was interesting seeing him conquer his fears, I guess, and going across that. But it was something else.
Something a little interesting that happened on the trip, we mentioned Sean, the one who we found out had a fear of heights. A lot of his classmates actually stayed behind and helped him up the mountain. And that was really cool to see kind of the boys working together to make sure that everybody was able to climb the mountain together and safely. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. One thing to bring up that kind of brought up a little bit of it, but what differences do you think there are between the students here versus if we were to attempt to do something like this at home, which I don't think ever would happen. Not
to that magnitude.
No,
it'd
not
definitely be on a trail.
Yeah. But what are some differences that y'all saw?
I think they were definitely given a lot more freedom. At times, the boys were kind of leading the way, and the teachers were just kind of there to supervise. But at home, like you said, they probably would have never attempted to climb the mountain, and if we had, the teachers would have definitely been right up there in the front, making sure everybody got through safely. So I don't know if it's because the students can handle it better or because they just are expected to act mature and be able to do stuff like that. But there definitely is a difference, and they have more freedom, and they're treated more like grown-ups here than at home.
I agree with that statement. They are treated a lot more like grown-ups. They're expected something. I don't know if it's just higher expectations, but it's just a certain set of expectations of their students. So, what they expect and they receive it. They get that out of their students, and it's really nice to see it work, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the next thing, going on to we were talking about students a little bit. So, I know that Emily and I, we worked with some students in some grouping, and I know you've both been tutoring. So, what kind of experience have you had with one-to-one interaction with students?
I tutored 2 kids throughout the week, and I've noticed that it's something. I don't know if it's just the fact that there's someone different working with them, but they work a lot harder for me than I do. I had to see them when they work in class because I have them both in class and tutoring. So it's just that a little bit extra time, and they really push a lot more in the tutoring sessions than they do in the class. And this could be like, for attention reasons. I'm not sure for my kids specifically, but they they're presumed to be low in class, and I think maybe that presumption can kind of make them, not as willing to answer questions out loud and things like that. So when you have one-to-one, they only have themselves, so it they end up getting a lot. Like we got a lot of work done, and we perfected a lot of math skills within, just a couple meetings. So it was just, I guess, just seeing the difference between the one-on-one and the classrooms. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like what me and Victoria had. We've already kind of talked about it, but in one classroom we're both in because the teacher needed a lot of help. It's really really rough group. It's a really rough class. So we pulled out four students and went and worked with them separately, and they were really good for us. They, weren't trying to show off for their classmates, and the teacher said the class went a lot smoother without them in it. So when they just have work to do, we've been helping them instead of keeping them in the classroom and disrupting the other ones, which has been going really well so far. So.
It's been about the same, my experience so far. I work in a couple of resource classes, which are classes that students are put into whenever they can, or get special passes to not have to complete certain classes. So if they have dyslexia, they won't be required to learn Irish in the classroom, so they'll be put in a resource class. And one of the students who I'm working with is actually, he just recently moved to Ireland and has only been speaking English for 3 years. He came in not knowing any English at all, so that's proved to be an extra challenge, especially not having as much experience with English language learners as, somebody who might have chosen that as their minor. So that has definitely been an experience, a learning experience for figuring out exactly what he needs and how to teach him. So that's been pretty interesting.
Interesting. All right, so we talked about like our one-on-one work and kind of that. So what about our role? What's been our main role? What we've been doing in the classroom? So just in a typical classroom setting, like what is our role? So go for it. I'll start.
I've taken on more of a support role, especially in the resource classes. I'll take students out and work one-on-one with them. Usually, I have one first-year English class, which is 7th grade.
Yeah, I think so.
For us, 7th grade.
12 and 13.
Yeah, and I kind of go around and make sure that homework is done, and then one class a week I will take that class on and I'll teach an entire lesson. So that's kind of the role that I've taken on.
Same. I've just been kind of like helping the teacher when they're working on individual work, just walking around if they have questions and helping them individually, and then just watching the teacher when they lecture, and I've helped go over homework with one of the classes a few times, and then working in small groups with them in one of the classes as well, pulling them out and helping them with work individually if they need a little bit more support.
I personally, I tutored 2 kids specifically, like for whole class periods. They dropped 2 classes, French and business, which was kind of interesting that they're 7th grade age and they're being able to take French and business classes. But they chose to drop those classes because they were doing pretty poorly in them, and we were going to work on math together. So I do one-on-one support for them, 2 classes on Monday and Tuesday, and then 1 class on Wednesday and 1 class on Thursday. And then I'm also teaching a full unit of geometry currently, so it's interesting to see the class. Now my teacher has had such a good classroom management skills himself that I don't have to really worry about anything. I just have to put out the content, and the kids pretty much follow whatever I say, so that's nice. But and then I get to observe a 5th year class, which I only observe, and I don't really have a role in that class. They're a little bit lower ended, and they're dealing with complex numbers and things like that that they just need help from their teacher herself, and that's just been a good time to see good instruction strategies and stuff like that.
I've been mainly observation. That's usually what I've been doing. Observation, and then some of the classes I'm in some of the higher level biology classes, so they're more specific, so it's more like actually like an anatomy class or something like that. So they actually did an experiment. They did a heart dissection, so I got to help with that, and I walked around with them, making sure they were doing everything correctly and kind of helping them with the dissection. That was really cool to see. And also, I've been just kind of helping the teacher to kind of monitor what students are doing. But right now, they're getting prepared for their leaving cert exams, so they're really focused on like super content. They're just trying to get it all in. So most of the time, I'm just doing observation. But I've noticed a lot of different types of strategies they use. Most of the teachers, they do kind of lecture. It's mostly lecture based. But the way that they go over notes and the way they review with students is a lot different than how we would, kind of, to prepare for an exam like that. So, and then I've also worked with groups with Emily, so we've got to do that too. Okay, we're good? All right, the next one, we met with Damien, he's a student council president. I think they're called student council.
Yeah.
And so what we learned that their student council has a lot bigger role here than they would back home. They actually discuss all kinds of improvements and do all kinds of things, and they're very involved with what's going on in the school. And he got hand dryers for the school, and he's trying to get like different things, like just maintenance type things, and he actually can get it approved, and it'll actually make a difference. So what about that meeting kind of stood out to you? What kind of
Just how knowledgeable he was about the school and the goings-ons within the school, and the steps that he needed to take personally to make sure that these things that he wanted to implement while he was there as student council president would actually happen. And he mentioned to us as well that it's not just within like Rice College where he's the student council president. He was actually going to meet with a bunch of other schools, their student council presidents, and discuss.
I think it was in Dublin.
Yeah,
he was going to Dublin. Yeah.
Like 3.5 hour train ride.
Yeah. So it's not just being super involved in his school. They're all involved together, and there's a lot of discussion that's going on about improvements that can be made in the schools. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, like, kind of going off what Abby said, he, like, when he sees a problem, he thinks of, like, a solution to do, just like with the hand dryers. The problem was people were using toilet paper, and throwing it up on the ceiling, and there wasn't trash cans in there, so they were stopping up the sinks and leaving all over the place. And so their solution was get hand dryers. So they're drying their hands with their hair dryers instead of with the toilet paper, and then throwing the toilet paper everywhere. So it was really cool to see that the student council saw a problem, and then they proposed a way to fix it, and then the school supported them in that and actually did what they were asking to do. So they're getting things done, and the students like really have a voice there and getting kind of not everything that they want. Obviously, it's a process, but just to make improvements to their school.
Yeah, I ended up missing. I had a tutor, so I missed some of what he did, maybe some of the explanations and stuff. But he definitely was the most ambitious, person in the student council I've ever seen. He definitely really wanted to do good, and he was on top of it. He was really working he had goals set in mind, and he wanted to know what we thought of, like what we could and how we could improve and what we would do in certain cases and stuff. And he was really interested in actually learning from a different perspective, and and actually trying to improve the school, which was something that we don't always see in our students back home.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think he probably asked us more about the differences in the schools than the teachers did.
Yeah.
And, differences in instruction and how our schools were set up. He asked us a lot of questions about that and seemed fairly knowledgeable about how his school was running.
Yeah.
Wanted to compare.
Yeah, that's what I thought that was so interesting, because he was taking notes about everything, and he really wanted to know, like, is there anything that Rice College could do better? Or, is there stuff that we're doing back home that he could use? So it's almost like he was using us as a learning tool, to help the school. I thought that was just really cool that, he did that. So. Anything else? Damien was a cool kid. He was very mature, man. He's going
More
places.
mature than I am.
All right, so how about, we have the bank holiday on Monday, so we just have Tuesday through Friday, but what are your, what are your plans? What do you want to get out of your last week of being at Rice College? Just being here. So.
I'm teaching another lesson next week, and up until this point, the classes that I've taken over, I've tried to take on the teaching style that's, standard for an Irish classroom, or at least in the school. And next week, the teacher that I'm working with challenged me to bring in an American style lesson. So I'm teaching a poetry, mini lesson, that's a little bit more like something that we would see back home.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I guess my goal, well, there's one teacher that I'm with that's really, really good. She's got a really good discipline policy. She's really good at enforcing it and being fair and consistent in that. And so I had her email it to me, and so now I have it to use in my classroom because I really liked it. But I think just learning more and more from her, the more I'm with her class, I learn something of how she does stuff, and her classroom management's wonderful, and the kids listen, and it's a really good class to watch. So I think just learn more from her and her teaching styles and how she does things and runs her classroom.
That's a good question, because
I didn't know we were asking.
Oh, sorry.
no, because
Threw you off there.
Back in interview.
because I'm teaching a full unit of geometry, and as today, I was told that he was handing out a test today, so I wasn't having to worry about it. And I showed up, and he said, "Oh, what do you have planned today?" And I said, "Nothing." He said, "Well, you can get it." And then so I just taught off the top of my head. So really, probably I plan on working on my own planning. So maybe being prepared for those moments a little bit better than I was today. It went fine, and the kids respond well to me, but it can get a little nerve-wracking if you're not planned out properly. So maybe just a little bit more planning for next week. Maybe just getting used to the more of a teacher feel to it, being here, because I had one, when I left, student teaching from America, and now it's just getting back in it for this classroom and trying to dive in as fast as I can, really, and hopefully get these kids, to learn something.
I would say mine would probably be to work really hard with those students that we were in the group with, because once we actually started working with them, one of the kids, even though apparently he doesn't do any of his work, he would just spit out answers. It was the quickest, and he knew all of it. And I was just looking at him going, why is this such a problem when you're downstairs, So I think working with them more, and maybe just, talking to them and saying, this is how you need to be all the time. And maybe, our perspective might be a little bit better. And secluding them, and I think just working with them is a big plan. And we'll work with them, 2 days, 3 periods next week. So I think that'll be good. Well, are you having fun?
Yes. Of course.
Yeah. I think jet lag hit me, 2 weeks later. So I'm pretty tired. Or that might be the teaching. Or it might be
the physical activity we did last week.
So I've been pretty tired this week, but I'm having fun. It's been good.
Yeah. Everybody having a good time?
Yep.
I'm getting a little tired of potatoes.
Yeah, that's true. I never
we
knew.
eat a lot of potatoes.
I never knew.
It wasn't a joke.
No, it wasn't.
It's not a stereotype. They really do eat a lot of potatoes.
Every meal, there's potatoes. I'm pretty sure, and it's acceptable that you eat potatoes for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, for snack.
Yeah.
We're going to Galway tomorrow, so we're going tomorrow through our 3-day weekend, our bank holiday weekend. Yeah. So we'll go to Galway. We're gonna go to Cliffs of Moher and gonna just explore the city. It's a nice little town, so we're gonna do that and
try and make the most of the last week and a half we have left.
Yeah. I know.
Experience it all.
All right. Well, is that everything?
Yep.
Anybody want to add anything else?
I'm good.
All right. Well, hope you enjoyed our little update and go Tops.
Yeah, go Tops.